Hey everyone, welcome to Stratele Studios. I'm Jeff Castanon, and I am with Sarah Georges, my resident vocal expert. Thank you for helping me out with this and come and give your expert opinion on watching this VOCES8 song that was requested by Richard Todd. This is Kyrie from Mass in E flat by Josef Rheinberger. So without further ado, let's get into this. Here we go. Chord. Wow. There's a lot of movement in that piece.
So good, man. I'm a sucker for a chant, like a Latin. That's a very chant like
Right.
traditional Latin Kyrie right there. That was awesome.
I was noticing, I think her name's Andrea. This one, she usually
Mm-hmm.
carries the highest parts in VOCES8. But
Mm-hmm.
this woman on this side, I was watching her singing, and her parts were like the high parts too. I was
Mm-hmm.
wondering, was she singing harmony? Was she doubling?
To me, it looked like she was singing like a second soprano part.
Uh huh.
I think that this had a lot of Divisi in it. I think they probably were all singing a different part. It
Mm.
was probably an 8-part
So
song.
she probably wasn't singing a unison note with
Right.
Andrea.
Yeah, there may have been some points where they intersected, but
Right.
she was singing
She had
that
a
second part, and then
different harmony.
the other gal that was in there was singing like an alto part.
Are you familiar with this composer? I've never heard of him.
No, I'm not.
These voices are going, like I've mentioned before, in a very horizontal way, meaning that it's melody, melody, melody that they're all singing, but then they all land on the same note at the same time, and then they have a chord spread.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that, because it's like, oh yeah, they are singing also harmonically, not just
Mm-hmm.
melodically. And I always love that about these compositions that I've heard them sing, is that the composers are very conscious about having not just the melody, but also the harmony as being a featured thing. Because when they hit those stacks, those chords are so beautiful. And like I mentioned at the very end, right as they're going out, they hit that one chord that I had
Mm-hmm.
not heard that chord yet in the composition. And it
Mm-hmm.
was almost cadential. It was almost like, okay, we're getting it. Yeah, let's do something. It's got a lot of color in it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me rewind that and play that chord for you so you could hear what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and what you were saying about the the imitation, that's very typical for these chant pieces, is that
Mm,
it'll be like a theme, it'll be a little melody,
yeah.
and then maybe they'll start the same sequence on a different pitch,
The road. Yeah.
and they'll start at different times.
Hmm.
So, and that's what you saw near the beginning when they were featuring each of the different
Right.
artists.
Right.
So they were all singing, you know, their own part, but they were kind of like a similar kind of a line,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's how these chants work.
Now.
That's very typical. So they'll have, it's almost like the kind of like a fugue is what that's
Right.
called. It's a
Very,
fugue
very
like,
fugal.
and
Yeah.
then yeah, and then they'll come together and they'll sing a part that's more homophonic, where it's
Hmm.
they're singing these big chords all together,
Right.
with in the same time,
Hmm.
right, with the
Hmm.
same words,
Right.
um, and that's what gives it that contrast. So
Yeah, that's the whole thing about these staggered imitated lines that I love that. It's the row, row, row your boat thing,
mhm,
right? And what is so cool about that is depending on the melody, you can get some really interesting slices in time where
mhm,
the interval, or if it's more than two people, a chord, is really super interesting. The first three notes of the melody that are like lined up being sung at the same time, because they're
mhm,
all displaced in time. Um, you know,
mhm,
that's really super interesting. It'd be a great exercise for a student of music to come up with a melody
mhm.
and then do this imitation on it, and take, these slices out and say, what chord is this? What chord
Right.
is this?
And this is actually how we teach harmony. Like when we're first starting to teach choir, trying to teach
Hmm.
kids how to sing harmony, is we do these rounds,
Yeah.
because that's naturally they're singing the melody that they get familiar with, and then it naturally forms the harmony, and then their ear starts getting used to it. So,
Wow.
and with row, row, row your boat, you're starting on do or one, the tonic, and you're going to the third step to me while the other person's still on do. This is what you're saying. You're on the first and the third.
Right. So now you're forming it.
Re, mi.
Right.
Yeah. And so you're going to the first and the third, and that's just what forms the chord.
Yeah.
The beginnings of a chord.
In row, row, row your boat, what is stream? Is stream
it's 5.
Sol?
Yeah.
Sol. Okay. So you've got a major triad.
Exactly.
In that, if you're singing that.
Yeah. So if you got 3 parts going on.
Yeah.
You're starting on do.
It's a very good way to teach singing in a choir, because then they're fixated on the melody. So they're not thinking about the harmony. So it's like, hey, anyone can sing row, row, row your boat. But then they find themselves in the midst of singing a chord with other people, so they get comfortable with
exactly.
That. It's really interesting. As a choir director, what are some of the challenges that you have encountered with first-time choir students? Like, what are some of the struggles that they have when they're starting out?
Well, I would say, first of all, if they've never really sung, that they have trouble hearing pitch. First of all, that's like the main thing. A lot of kids just can't even match pitch.
So if you sang, like, here's an A, sing that with me, and then they're like...
they're all over the place.
They're like at an F.
Yeah. And a lot of times that's because they hear... they're hearing the overtones.
The overtones.
And so they're singing like a fifth away.
Yep.
So actually a lot of voice teachers don't understand that concept.
Wow.
Which is interesting. They don't get that. So
they think it's a random note, but it's not. It's not.
So a lot of times
it's the overtone series.
Yeah, they're trying to focus in on the overtone.
Yep.
But there's really no such thing as tone deaf, because unless you speak in a total monotonous voice,
right,
you're not tone deaf. If you can speak with inflection in your voice, you're not tone deaf. Right?
So would you say that, like, you could teach somebody, let's say somebody came in off the street and they're having this issue, you're saying sing an A and they're singing a different note, they're singing E, okay? So how can you help this person to understand that they're not singing an A, they're singing an E? How do you get them to match your A that you're singing?
So sometimes what I start with is I'll have them sing a pitch and then I'll match them and then try and get them to move from there.
Oh,
that's kind of the first way.
Oh, interesting.
To do that, because you kind of meet them where they're already at.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And then you have them talk in different voices. Talking a baby voice, talking a Mickey Mouse voice.
Oh, how does
just
that,
so that you can get
do?
them to hear, like, especially with my male students, when they can't switch into falsetto.
Yes.
They don't get the concept, and so he's like, yeah, talking your Mickey Mouse voice, and then they can hear what it sounds like.
That's really interesting, because some of these terms are a little too technical, falsetto or whatever, and they're like, okay, I don't really understand what that means. Okay, well, sing like Mickey Mouse, and then you gotta sing up here. Well, now you're in your falsetto. That's what it means. So it's breaking it down in terms they could understand more easily. Yeah,
there are some other techniques we use too. Like I'll have them put their hands up here, because then it'll bounce the sound kind of back into to their face so they can hear.
Yeah.
They also have these tubaloos. It's like a phone, but it's just it'll make the sound so you can hear yourself singing.
Really?
So sometimes it's just a hearing issue that you can't really.
Wow.
You need to hear yourself what you're singing, and it'll just kind of help you.
Have you ever had any students that have come in that have blown you away? Like they are just on a whole nother level than your other students?
Oh yeah, I have students at all different levels. Because being in the Los Angeles area and being in a lower demographic, I have a lot of students that have never had any sort of music at the high school level. They'll get it there and they've never had a music class in their life. And we got kids that are moving in and they've been learning music their whole life. So, you know, some kids just naturally get it and they take to it really quickly, and they pick things up really easily, and it's just harder for some other kids. You know, some kids are better at sports, some kids are better at writing papers or
the challenging thing, I would imagine, is because the disparity between somebody who's just coming in and somebody who has been singing all their lives, for example, just out of the crib at home, and maybe even their parents are musicians, and they come into the class and they're alongside somebody who is just starting. It's not like we're playing football where the inexperienced are going to sit on the bench.
Right.
You have to include them. I mean, at whatever level they're on, there is no bench for choir. You're going to be bringing these people in who have very different abilities. How do you manage something like that as someone who has to get up on stage with, 24 kids and perform in front of all the parents and all of that? How do you reconcile situations like that?
Just try to make it fun for everybody. So if they're having fun and they're enjoying themselves, that's the important thing.
Right.
You just got to make them want to be there.
Yeah. So you don't, I guess you can't really tailor it for their different abilities, right? I mean, because you're really having to be slaved to what voice that, what range that they're in. So, if you've only got 3 altos,
right,
and they all suck, then you got to live with it, because it's like those are your altos. That's the range that they're singing in. So it's not like you can move them somewhere else that they won't be as easily heard. It's like, no, that's the job they have, and you have to work with them as best as you can. And I guess probably find material music that they can perform that is within their reach, and not do something that's so difficult that they're not going to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, that's part of being a teacher, is knowing the limits of what they can do and choosing the right repertoire to fit the situation, and knowing where you can switch people around, and and it might be different for this song. You might be singing alto. For this song you might be singing soprano. Then I switch my kids around. Right. Sometimes depending on the song. Right. Sometimes we'll do a song that's 3-part here. Sometimes we'll only do 2 parts for this song. Right. And right. It just depends on the song,
what you can get away with for that song.
So we just make do and adapt as needed. And
well, that's super interesting. It's that stuff is fascinating to me. I think you have a pretty cool job, actually, being able to work with the kids and mold them, and that's super exciting. Richard, thank you so much for another great pick for VOCES8, and Sarah, thank you again for spending time on the channel and giving everybody a little dose of your expertise on this stuff, and I really appreciate that. I will put information about VOCES8 in the description, and please go support them and come back for some more cool stuff. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, I just wanted to let you all know that the Stratele Studio Shop is up and running. This is the artwork for the various designs that I have on the products. Basically, it's studios A through F. These are the graphics that I showed at the beginning of each video, and you can get these graphics on a variety of products. As you see here on the website, you have 10 products that are customizable. You can actually change the location or the size of the graphic on the product. I hope you come check it out.